Cindy Birkland here, and welcome back to Naked Money. And boy, do I have a treat for you today. I have a very good friend with me today, Brian Maxey, and he has his own show, his several books out, and a company called Time to Grab Your Balls. So I wanted to have Brian on today because he's got so many fabulous things that he coaches businesses on and everything. And there's some great information that he has to share with us that I think it would be so amazingly valuable to us, for you guys as listeners and viewers to the show. So I wanted to first talk about like your kind of main thing right now. I know you're writing a book and you've got several out right now, and you're compiling a huge book, and it's about Stoicism.
Correct.
And I just find this so valuable in my life. We've had many conversations, and I know you've even been working with my son a little bit. And I want you to define what Stoicism is and why it's so important to practice Stoicism. So let's start there, and then like kind of delve into how you got started with this. And so I wanted to start with that.
So it's interesting, you know, I currently have 7 books, and when I first started writing, everything was based on the ancient practices of Stoicism, but I never talked about Stoicism. I'm not a Stoic writer, you know, and so I would write about the way that people need to hold themselves accountable. I would write about just being a good, well-rounded human being. And finally, as more and more people these days are starting to understand what Stoicism is, it's kind of making a resurgence. And so I was like, you know what, I'm going to dive into the actual meaning of Stoicism, what it's about, what it teaches you, and actually talk about Stoicism. So I'm doing a whole series. I've currently finished 3 parts to the 10-part series. And so what Stoicism is, and anyone that's ever followed my work knows that I love overly simplified definitions to very complex things. So I take very complex things and I make it into layman's terms.
And that's how everything should be, really. When it 100%. Comes to money, all of that stuff.
100%, because if you can't understand it, what the hell's the point, you know? So with Stoicism, the way that I like to talk about it is there are 3 things that it teaches you. And there really are a million, but the 3 things it teaches you are this: master your emotions, right? Ultimately, from childhood, I won't go into all the science of it right now, but there's science that shows that from childhood, we become addicted to emotion. We are actually, like for me, it was always anger. You become addicted to the chemicals released by the brain when you experience anger. So now all of a sudden you live your life actually looking for reasons to be angry because your body needs its fix. It's
What about
horrible.
Depression? Would that be the same thing?
So depression, all mental health issues come into a similar type of cause.
Okay.
It's all a subconscious cause. But when you're talking about Stoicism, when you can break that automatic focus on the negativity or automatic focus on your thoughts and allow your brain to take back control of your emotions and your thoughts and your feelings and all these things, life slows down a little bit. It actually helps tremendously with things like anxiety and depression and all of that. So the number one thing is mastering your emotion. The second thing, a lot of people have always heard like, hey, only handle what you can control, or only focus on what you can control.
True.
People don't realize that's an ancient Stoic philosophy. It's called the dichotomy of control. So there's 2 things, right, that are it can only be one of 2 things, right? That's the dichotomy, things that are mutually exclusive. And it can either go into the box that you can control or you cannot control. And Stoicism says, if you can't control it, it gets 0% of your energy. Not 1, not 2, 0.
And can you imagine the world if everybody really understood that and knew that? There's so many people that get into drug problems and alcohol problems because they're just not in the right mind frame. And you know, and just so many people that I know, even in business, that I'm like, you're so manic. Like, why are you crying? Or why are you need to get yourself under control. We're never going to get to the finish line if you don't. And it's really amazing of people that, I guess a lot of it just comes from childhood and how we were raised and what we think is normal. Like some people were raised in so much trauma and drama and craziness that they think this is normal. And I'm like, how you're responding is not normal.
Correct. And And the misconception too is that it doesn't have to be some crazy traumatic incident, right? When we're up to the age of about 7, 8, 9 years old, we're pure subconscious. We are not a conscious mind. We're pure subconscious. The subconscious just hits a record button on a tape recorder and just brings it all in and records it to and it just imprints into you. And so with money, if you grew up and you heard the phrase, money doesn't grow on trees.
Yep. We're not made of money.
Are you heating the outside?
You don't need this.
You just imprinted into your subconscious that money is bad, that you're not worthy of money, all of these things.
Yeah.
And we know that thoughts, affect our lives, our external lives. And what people don't understand though is that being, I'm thinking positively, that's great. But we have 70,000 thoughts a day. And 95% of those are subconscious. So if you don't feel that you are valuable or you're not loved or money is evil, you've got 65,000 thoughts a day subconsciously all day long churning of those horrible negative thoughts. Like nothing we can do in the conscious world is going to change that.
Right. And I think that for a lot of times for me, I did a lot of work about, maybe 20 years ago. And I went through a training and I remember learning that we had to get off autopilot.
Yeah.
And when you have these thoughts or when things are coming your way, just notice. They'd say, just notice. And, when I became conscious of, wow, look at what just popped up and look at what I'm thinking. And I'm like, that's an interest. Now I will say, well, that's an interesting thought. Mm-hmm. Thank God it doesn't belong to me.
Yeah.
So that I realized I'm like, I'm not taking this train around the track.
Right.
We're not, and learning how to interrupt that. Like you can have a thought, but that doesn't mean you have to take it all the way through.
Yeah.
And some people will just get so, like the drama gets bigger and bigger because they just won't let it go. And I'm like, who told you that you have to keep thinking about the same thing?
And that's usually that addiction to the emotion involved. Not only that, but if they're stuck on this, where they're thinking about things that they can't control, even if it's only, 20% of my energy is going towards this, that thing may or may not even come true, right? We're always running scenarios in our head and we're worried about things, and most of them never come true. So you are sitting here letting your emotions dictate what you think, feel, and act.
Yeah.
You're thinking about things that may or may not come to fruition, and these things are never in your control to begin with.
And how much
taking
energy,
over your life.
Right? The energy and the mental real estate that it took up, and just all the things you could have been doing productively instead of that.
And that's kind of where you get to, anything that's in the box that says I can control this, 100% effort, 100%. There is no half-assing, right? Stoics don't believe in, well, I'm gonna do this, but I'm gonna do this, but I'm also gonna. If I can control it, it gets 100% of my effort. I handle it, I fix it, I blow it up if it's my business, whatever it is, 100% of my effort. I can't control it, 0%. And so that's really difficult to do.
Yeah.
I catch myself sometimes, and I've been doing this for many years. I catch myself sometimes where I'm like, nope. That political conversation, that's a 0%.
I can't do anything about it.
No.
Yep. And letting it upset me. I know politics is such a incredible thing right now. There's so many things in the world going on, and it's very easy to get upset.
Yeah.
And we're so polarized.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like the country is, and all those things, and to realize exactly what I can control is what I get to think about and bring about. And for an example, today I had a conversation with a business partner, and man, I wasn't really liking the way the conversation was going. And, we knew that we didn't have enough time. And he was like, hey, let's come back to this and let's have another conversation about this. And as we hung up the phone, I was like, oh my gosh. And all these thoughts were just going through my head. And I'm like, okay, we agreed that we're going to talk about this later, but what do I do about the space in between? Because it's an upset for me. It's not 100%. I didn't like the way the conversation was going, but it's learning and really controlling my mind to, okay, I get to pause these thoughts and feelings. and we get to come back to it later and be productive and do great things today in spite of that. And that is, man, it takes self-control. And self-control is not easy. It's work.
It's hard to fight that instinct, right?
Because I want to solve this and I want to fix this right now. We're going to talk about this right now, but it's not reality.
And a lot of times that isn't emotion in itself.
Yeah.
Sometimes emotions aren't bad, right? Emotions are emotions, and then there's good and bad, feelings that we put on top of it. It's energy is energy is energy, right?
Yeah.
And so, anytime you are trying to fight an instinct or fight, that's really difficult.
Well, I look at it because I'm a type A. I'm very controlling, and I'm like, this looks like a problem, so I want to just go in and fix it. And
I'm the exact same way.
It can be fixed, but it's not necessarily in my control the way it's going to be fixed, right?
And sometimes you need a minute in order to really go over the facts and come up with a logical response. Honestly, that was, when you do step one of Stoicism, right? You master those emotions. Really what you're doing is you're turning all of your emotional reactions into logical responses. Mm-hmm. And the world starts to slow down for you. Mm-hmm. It's absolutely incredible. Then you do that second part and you start to realize where you're putting your energy on what is important, what's not important, what you can control, what you can't control. Life changes at that point. And then it gets into the third part, which is gratitude.
Yeah. Okay. Let's hear about that. Let's definitely go there.
So gratitude's interesting because it's a little more of a woo-woo type of, you're like, yeah, I know. Of course I'm grateful. I've got a beautiful wife and great kids that I don't think I've completely screwed up to this point, and it's like, of course you're grateful. And it's like, but that's not the gratitude they're talking about. Gratitude is something where every morning I do gratitude practices.
Yep.
And it's really difficult to come up, if I say come up with 10, 15, 20 things you're grateful for, most people may even okay, you get through that first 10 or maybe the first 15, then you're really trying to think. When you start getting into 400, 500, 600 things, I do extreme, everything we talk about, I do extreme versions of it. You set your mind to all of a sudden look at things in a different way where there's times I'm just sitting there and I'm like, man, we have unlimited air and it feels good to take a deep breath. I have running water at my house.
Yeah.
People don't have that necessarily. That's not a given.
So true. Well, I had a pastor, I don't know if it was a pastor or somebody, I heard a message and they said, imagine if tomorrow you did not have what you didn't pray for today and thank God for. And I was like, well, I don't typically thank God for my bed or my house or, things I take for granted. But man, that had me go, wow, it's the most basic of things that if I did not have, my life would be very much an upset to not have a great bed to sleep in. A lot of people don't have that, so I started thinking, man, I really need to get back to basics here. Gratitude, thanking God for the littlest things I have, because it is those things that make my life so great. It's a combination of all those things. When we can be grateful for the little things, we really understand how much the little things make up everything else.
Well, everything in life is cause and effect, right? And life itself is the effect, and cause starts with what's inside, your thoughts, your gratitude, all these things. And when you start looking at the world through that, first of all, the world's a better place, right? Everything's perception. If you change your perception, you're changing your world.
Yep.
But you're also, more importantly, because I'm into some of this woo-woo stuff, but I'm very much into the science of the woo-woo, right? And so to me, it's what I love about it is being grateful is amazing. What's also just as amazing is training your brain to stop looking at lack.
Yeah.
When you're looking at the lack in life, you're just drawing in more things to lack. It's a terrible little, cycle to be in life.
Well, and it's how to stay in that place, because I feel like, when we're in business brings ups and downs. One day you can be on top of the world, and then the next day you're like in the dungeon. Experience is like the dungeon, and how do you keep your mindset like more at an even keel, even knowing that we're gonna face shrapnel sometimes in business, or all the ups and downs that come with being a business owner. I look back and I'm like, I've never ever really had a paycheck that I can remember other than high school. And when you're always, in business, you have to train your brain to how to stay calm when you're in between huge accounts or that kind of thing. And man, Stoicism, the way you were describing it, is so powerful, because I get to control my thoughts. When in a million times something may not be going my way that day, or in that moment, because there's going to be moments that are doing great, and practicing calmness. And I can't control that. I can't control that person. And what's next? What's next? What's always looking
and that's the thing too. When business has ups and downs, we can't control outcomes. We can, I can change the marketing. I can put more money into this. I can hire different people. I can do, those are all in my control. I cannot control ultimately the outcome. The way people review a message, I can take that as information and change what I can control using that information, but I can't control the way someone else sees something, does something, says something, whether or not they pull their checkbook out. I can't control that. Therefore, it should get 0% of my energy. I just do what the science and the data tells me is the best thing for what I can control, and I keep pushing to try to push my business forward. And when you look at it that way, what you do is you eliminate your expectations. If you eliminate expectations, you can't be down on it because you didn't have expectations. It is what it is, and you keep controlling what you can control. And it allows you kind of a freedom. It's like, hey, here's what I do, here's what I can control. Yeah, that outcome sucks or that outcome's amazing, but at the end of the day, this is what I'm focused on. It gets your energy, and it just makes, usually you're gonna have better results that way because all your energy's on the right things.
Let's switch gears a little bit. I know you have quite a big following on LinkedIn, and you've got a powerful presence in social media. And I know you get a lot of feedback from your people that follow you. So what do you think are the number one thing, if you had to put your thoughts on it, what do you think people are asking you the most, or requesting support with, feedback from you wise, or what's kind of the main theme when they ask you questions? What do you find that to be with your group?
So there's kind of two answers to that. As far as the feedback that I always get is, we want more personal stories. That is always the feedback. Every time I remember, it was the first thing I ever got feedback wise, that wasn't like, hey, this is amazing. It was like anything outside of 5 stars. This is brilliant. I love this. This has changed my life. It was, hey, can I give you some criticism? And I'm like, sure. And they're like, there needs to be more stories of how your personal life, because, my personal life, I've done a lot of different things, and everything I write about or I speak about, I take those things, I consume tens of thousands of hours of content in things like the brain and consciousness, and I take courses and do all these different things. And then I implement them in my life first.
Sure.
I spend 5-6 hours a day on my journey. I meditate hour and a half every day. I do all these different gratitude practices. I do education every single day. And so there's a lot of things where, as I'm explaining something, I can put personal stories in there, and I'm fine sharing, hey, here's how I screwed up. This is where I tried something and I failed miserably.
And what people, I think, are always looking for is they relate to something you say. That's what makes it so impactful. And to me, the greatest preachers or speakers always have the most stories. So absolutely, that would be so powerful, because people want to know, that I'm just like that person, and oh my gosh, this is what he learned, and I've been through something similar. So absolutely, that's very, very powerful.
Yeah, and I try to do that. I'll shoot videos, and I'll be like, hey, here's here's what I went through, here's what I was struggling with, here's the results of it, I just recently decided that shortly I'm going to release my journaling practice as a book, which is what anyone that's read Meditations by Marcus Aurelius, that's what hundreds of years after his death, they released his journaling as a book.
Wow.
And as I was going through it, I was very reluctant. I thought journaling was the stupidest thing. I'm like,
really?
Oh, when I first started my journey, I'm a man's man. I drink, bourbon and eat steak and shoot guns in the air. And so this idea of meditating every day was already so extreme. And then you got to journal. I'm like,
that's girl stuff.
I literally think the first journal entry, I'm like, I don't know. Who am I even talking to? Am I talking to myself? Is there an imaginary audience? I don't know what I'm doing. The guy said to just be myself and just speak the truth. And I'm like, okay, the truth is I think this journaling is stupid.
Yeah.
And I don't foresee myself continuing, and so I was reading back through over years of journaling. And the journey itself is just absolutely insane.
It really is remarkable. I started journaling in 2008. And I was going through the worst experience of my life. And I remember a girlfriend just asking me to write a book about it. Because she said, if you could keep one woman from going through what you just went through, would it be worth it? And I said, yes, I don't want anybody, not one person, to go through what I went through. And I started journaling every day, and I was going through this horrific process. And every night I did not want to revisit my day. My days were so ugly and black, and I would make myself journal every night. But in journaling and getting it out on paper, it started as a have to.
Yeah.
But over time, I remember reading back going, I really came through this. That really happened.
Yeah.
I wouldn't even believe it if I didn't go back and read it and go, oh my God, that did happen. Because people will go, no, that's not even true. That can't even be possible. And it was. And that was just journaling my day every day, just getting the ugliness out, even though I didn't want to. It was so painful because it was so painful in that moment, but then to relive it, this is what happened today. But then my journaling started going more into, as I grew in my journaling, I became very grateful. And those gratitudes started showing up in my journaling. And it's amazing how my brain would shift. When I just started writing about all the good things in my life.
It's powerful.
And what I was grateful for.
Yeah. And when we look back at times like that, the most important part, you're still here.
Yeah.
Obviously we go through terrible things and you're like, there's no way I can get through this. I'm physically going to die. I am not going to make it through this. And it's just yeah, you are.
Yeah.
Just stop. That's emotion.
Yeah.
Of course you're going to make it. 5 years from now, whatever you're going through is not going to matter.
Yeah. And I look back at it's those things that if we stop looking at it like it was a bad thing.
Yeah.
Now I look at everything in my life as that was such a great opportunity to grow. And I really thank God for that experience, even though it was so horrifying, because the person that I am today is not that old person. And if I could get through that, I can get through anything.
Yeah.
I think it's made me the type of person, it's made me a better speaker, it's made me a better coach, it's made me a better preacher, as far as I'm able to help other women because I went through that. I was on the other side going, I know exactly how you feel. It makes me more relatable. So again, it was a great opportunity, and it's something that I'm grateful for today because I'm able to help other people, not just women, So gratitude is huge. Stoicism is huge. I'm really so excited about what you're up to. And I think that we need to do this more often and have you on the show more often, because a lot of us need this kind of thing. It's shifting.
For me, I love it. I remember back when it's re-roofing a house when I was, younger, or, whatever, basically the whole, I was shoveling shit, back when I was a kid. I get to talk to people now for a living. It doesn't get any better than that.
Right, you're not doing manual labor anymore.
And people are being helped by it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I do a lot of, podcast appearances, different things like that. It's just and I realize I didn't answer the second half of your question earlier. People do, they read my stuff, they reach out and they're like, hey, maybe can I put in a request? And they always request when it comes to Stoicism specifically, how can I use Stoicism to help in my family life, whether it's your marriage or parenting, business, which usually translates into leadership.
Absolutely.
It's really not, everything comes down to leadership, and that's spending years and years and years as a business consultant. That's how I got into all of this. And then the last thing is mental health. And so because those three were the biggest things that I was being asked about, those were the first 3 books I wrote in the Stoicism series. It's called the Stoic Family 101, the Stoic Leader 101, and the Stoic Guide to Mental Health 101.
Love it.
And so they're all 101 books. And then once I finish all 10, I will
put them into one big book.
Do one enormous book that you can just get all of them at once. So.
I love it. So how can we get some of those books right now?
So you can go to timetograbyourballs.com. I've got books listed on there. I was holding off on the 3 Stoicism books until I was finished, but I think I'm just going to go ahead and release them because a lot of people are asking.
Sure.
As they know that they're finished, they're like, well, I want it. I'm like, all right. So I think I'm going to release them. Maybe even release them like as a Kindle or something, something. So
you're on LinkedIn.
LinkedIn.
You're on Instagram,
Facebook.
Okay. So we can reach you on timetograbyourballs.com on the website, and it'll direct us.
Getter, Threads. Yeah.
Okay.
LinkedIn is my
your go-to
platform.
Got it.
Yeah.
Well, I just want to say thank you for being on the show today. This was awesome. Let's have you back soon.
I'm in.
Thank you guys for joining in. Again, Brian Maxey from Time to Grab Your Balls. Cindy Birkland here. Just wanted to say thank you for watching the channel. And if you want more content, just need you to click right here. And don't forget to subscribe to the YouTube channel, clicking right here. If any of these conversations have interested you, please get a hold of us at cindybirkland.com, or you can reach me at cindybirkland@gmail.com. Thanks again for watching.